Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, October 1st. If you are just tuning in, we've just gone through the NFL Power Rankings. And before we get into our next segment, some updates from around the Diamond, the wild card round. The Orioles currently down 1-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Gunnar Henderson just walked. Kansas City leading 1-0, bottom 8. The Brewers have come out quickly to a 2-0 lead over the Mets. Currently, the Mets have 2 men on and nobody out in the top of the second. Keep you updated on those. In this segment, we're going to take a look at the NCAA's top 25, as well as our group of 5 top 5 teams to take a look at where the playoffs stand for now. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it, or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you have a burning question about sports, anything that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, October 1st. But like I was saying, we're getting into the NCAA top 25. But before we do that, real quick, we have, of course, our group of 5 top 5. Starting at number 5 here, a service academy, Navy. All the service academies, or I guess Army and Navy, I should say, have been awesome this year. Navy comes off of a huge win this week. They also beat Memphis last week, who was up on our list a little while ago before they take that loss to Navy. Navy is our number 5 team. Washington State drops 2 spots on our list after losing to Boise State, getting blown out by Boise State. Boise State looks like a juggernaut in the group of 5 right now. James Madison up 1 spot from number 4. Alonzo Barnett, another huge game. They put up 63 points after putting up 70 last week. They also look like a wagon. UNLV also up 1 spot to number 2. New quarterback, no problem. They might even look better there. And of course, Boise State and Heisman candidate Ashton Jeanty, in my mind, Heisman leader Ashton Jeanty, at the top of that group of 5 list. We'll see if any of them were able to make it on to the top 25, or if Boise was able to keep their spot on there as well. But starting at number 25, Illinois. A tough loss to Penn State, a good Penn State team. They end up losing by a couple of scores. This is still a good Illinois team. Got a little too high on them. They're down 4 spots to 25. 24 is Indiana. They had one of the best off seasons in all of college. New coach, basically a whole new roster. They take down their first real opponent of the season, and they do it in pretty good fashion. They're up 1 spot to number 24. At 23, it's those previously mentioned Boise State Broncos. Ashton Jeanty on pace for 2,700 yards, on pace for 40 touchdowns. Those are not human numbers. Those would shatter records by Barry Sanders that he set back when he was in college. Ashton Jeanty for Heisman. Absolutely. At number 2, the Utah Utes. And this is a team that I am starting to be a little angry with, honestly. Cam Rising, when he is in at quarterback, this is a top 10 team nationally. No doubt about it in my mind. That defense is elite, physical. When they don't have Cam Rising, they cannot score. They cannot move the ball. This is not how you play football. They should have brought in a backup quarterback. This is very much kind of like the Dolphins are experiencing without Tua, except this happens every single season for Utah. Utah, get your stuff together, man. They're down. Biggest fallers of the week. Utah's down 13 spots to number 22. A team that was out of the top 25 for a little while. Arizona gets a big win over the Utah Utes. Their defense really did impress me. Now, again, it's against a Utah team that can't score without Cam Rising. But that offense is scary. It's elite, can score on just about anybody except this number 20 team, the Kansas State Wildcats. The Wildcats held Arizona just 7 points. Outside of that, Arizona's been really awesome offensively. Kansas State gets a huge win over Oklahoma State, taking them down in very convincing fashion. Avery Johnson is a good dual-threat quarterback, but he has his ups and downs. Didn't look very good in an earlier matchup against Tulane. Didn't look very good against Arizona, but dominated against a good team in Oklahoma State. Kansas State is a little up and down, but they deserve to be in the top 25. At 19, it's Louisville. Louisville lost to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, very good team. Very good defense. Louisville only lost by 7. I still think Louisville's offense can compete with just about anybody. Their defense might need a little bit of work, especially their run defense, and that's what Notre Dame thrives on. But still a very good team over there in Kentucky. Louisville should be up there. At number 18, BYU. BYU dominates for most of that game against Baylor after getting a huge win the week before against Kansas State there. BYU, very good team. They're up a couple spots to 18. 17, the Oklahoma Sooners. Their defense is very, very impressive. That defense is going to keep them in games when their offense continues to struggle a little bit. They take down Auburn. Huge win for them. They bounce back from a loss to Tennessee. Tennessee's a tough team. LSU at number 16. They've got struggles of their own, but I mean, they continue to win football games. If they run into a team with a super high-powered offense, they're going to run into some issues, especially if that team also has any kind of defense, which is half of what South Alabama was. They dominated them this week. 15, the USC Trojans. The Trojans, again, they took a win over LSU earlier on in the season. You have to respect that head-to-head. This is a good program. It's not a program that I think is a lock for the playoffs, but it's a good program, one that's going to be fringe playoff contenders. Same thing with the Wolverines. They get a win this week as well. It wasn't super impressive. They almost lost this game, but a win's a win. They've been able to bounce back from that Texas loss. Figured out an identity here. Run the ball down people's throats. The Wolverines are at 14. At 13, it's Iowa State. That defense is elite. A shutout on the road. Even if it's against Houston, shutting another team out in their own building is not something you ever see in college football. And that is crazy. Iowa State is a very, very good football team. That defense is going to be tough for any team to stop, and they've got just enough offense to compete. They're built a little better than Iowa has been in the past. They're up to 13. At 12, it's Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is, I think, a good team. They got hit in the mouth from the first real team that they played in Kentucky, a Kentucky team that I tried to fit in here, and I honestly just couldn't. They're the first team out of these rankings right now. Ole Miss is a very good team. Very good team in Ole Miss. That offense, I don't know what happened. Again, they need to figure out how to be able to react from a team hanging around and getting hit in the mouth. Until they can do that, they're going to continue to fall. But one loss, I don't think is enough to drop out of the top 25. Definitely enough to drop out of the top 10, though. They are down 8 spots to number 12. At number 11, it's Notre Dame. An impressive win over Louisville. They're bouncing back from a brutal loss against Northern Illinois. If their offense can keep playing the way that it has been in recent weeks, and their defense continues to do what their defense always does, they're going to be a contender for the playoffs, and they're going to be a problem for some of these bigger schools. 10, Missouri. Missouri is a good SEC team. They've been playing teams closer than you want them to, but still getting wins. They're still undefeated. Once they get those SEC matchups start to come in, like those good SEC matchups, there's a good one this week against Texas A&M. I think they should win that one pretty much outright. They're not favored, but we'll talk about that one later on in the week. Missouri up to number 10. Clemson up to 9. A big win over Stanford. Stanford, a team that took down a solid team in Syracuse. That's not a nothing win for Clemson. Clemson is proving that week one was just a fluke, and they deserve to be ranked up here. I think Clemson is one of the best teams in the nation, especially with the way that offense has been playing of late. Up 3 spots to number 9. At number 8, it's Penn State, a huge win over the Illinois Fighting Illini. This is not one of those normal Illinois wins. This proves, honestly, Penn State can play with some of the better teams in the league in all of college football, right? The Big Ten is going to be stacked. Obviously, the big threat for Penn State always is going to be Michigan and Ohio State. But as long as they can get through, as long as they play like they had, and especially like they did against Illinois, score doesn't show it, but they dominated that game. I think they can keep pace with some of those teams. 7, it's Oregon. They found their offense a couple weeks ago. They continue to find it. I know UCLA is not the most impressive win, but Oregon is a very good team, and they're taking care of business against the small teams like they should have been earlier on in the year, something that they struggled with. We start to see them come back, figure it out a little bit. That's an encouraging sign as they start to get into Big Ten play. At number 6, it's Miami, a sweat fest of a game. If you're a Miami fan, you thought you lost that one to Virginia Tech at the last second. Turns out they overturned that call. I think that was the right call. I don't think it was a catch. Controversy over there, not the way you want to have a week. You lose a little bit of momentum, but a big win. Cam Ward, comeback. This is a very good Miami Hurricanes team. They're here at number 6. At number 5, we have the Tennessee Volunteers. They just keep winning games, and they just keep winning games by a large margin, right? There's going to become a time when they have to play an elite squad, when they have to play a Georgia, when they have to play a Texas, when they have to play a Bama. And that's when we're really going to test their mettle. But quality wins have started to come their way. This is not your old Tennessee, I don't think. I think they have real championship ambitions this year. At number 4, it's Ohio. They drop a spot just because one team had a massive win, and we'll get to them in a little bit. Ohio State still has yet to play anybody. Once they play somebody real, that's when I'm going to know how good they are. But until then, it's just speculation, and they just need to keep beating the bad teams. We'll see. At 3, it's Georgia, a massive loss to Alabama. In an instant classic of a game. Georgia's still a very good team. I still think they're one of these top championship contenders. They were able to come back after being down 28 to a really good Alabama team, make it a game at the end. They just weren't able to pull it across the finish line. Georgia at number 3. At number 2, it's Texas. They didn't do anything wrong. They won their game like they were supposed to. But there was another team that had a bigger week. And again, that's just how it goes sometimes with these rankings. Texas, very good. That win against Michigan, the reason they're not number 1 is because that win against Michigan is not as impressive to me as the win for the number 1 team in the nation this week, the Alabama Crimson Tide. They got their first number 1 ranking since the Nick Saban era, since Nick Saban leaves. Only took 5 games. Pretty impressive. Way to go, Alabama. A huge win for them at home against Georgia. Ryan Williams, phenom at just 17 years old. This is going to be a really tough SEC title, and I cannot wait for the playoffs because we might be able to see 5 SEC teams in there. It's going to be a bloodbath. Should be a lot of fun this year. But let me know what you thought of my NCAA top 25. Do you think Alabama should be number 1? Who would you move around? Anyone I ranked too high, way too low? Anyone that I didn't have in there that you thought I should have? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We'll be back tomorrow breaking down some more baseball action as the playoffs continue to heat up. We will talk all about Devontae Adams. We will talk all about anything else that happens around the world of sports. You all have a good one. Bye-bye. Let's go. I wake up, a bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna